Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jennifer and this is a stats video. So stats nerds, this one is for you. I'm going to be looking at all my reading stats for the year to date so far up to today. Today is the 6th of July 2025. So what we'll do is we'll go through all of the Storygraph stats in terms of my reading so far, numbers of books, genres, average ratings. We'll look at how I am doing on my goals for the year. Some better than others, I think. And then finally we'll have a look at sort of how I want to shape my reading for the rest of 2025. So should we start off with some Storygraph stats? My Storygraph is always linked in the description box of my videos, so you can go there and follow me or add me as a friend so I can follow you as well, and you can see what I'm reading, and you can also access all these stats as far as I know from there as well. So this year so far I've read a total of 73 books, which equates to sort of just under 20,000 pages. I haven't set myself a specific goal in terms of number of books I want to read this year, and I haven't done that for a while, really, just because it doesn't really do anything for me. I don't have a need to reach a certain number. I just read as many books as I'm able to read, and obviously work gets in the way of that quite a lot. So 73 books so far, it's not too bad, and the average time to finish, it says, is 4 days. Now I have been trying to log books as started on the day that I start to read them. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes there'll be a little bit of a delay, so 4 days, but 4 days sounds about right, I would say. So in terms of the moods of the books I have been picking up, dark and mysterious are the top themes there. Dark, mysterious, emotional, reflective, intense, which makes sense. I was going to mention the DNF stat, which isn't on one of these graphs, but in terms of DNF, so I've read 73 books so far this year, and I've DNF'd an additional 33 books. So that makes my DNF rate for the year so far 31%. So around 1 in 3 of the books that I pick up I DNF, and that is, since I've been recording the DNF stats for the last few years, 1 in 3 seems to be around my DNF rate, so that's not really a surprise. In terms of, let's see, what did I want to look at? We'll look at the page number because this is quite interesting. So 2/3 of the books that I've picked up have been under 300 pages, which I think is a little unusual. I think most of the books I have picked up in previous years, according to the Storygraph stats, have been between 300 and 499 pages. So for whatever reason this year I've been picking up more shorter books, which is fine but interesting. And then if we look at the genres that I have been reading this year, I mean, some of these, so the top one is literary. If we count that as a genre, I don't really. So literary is the top, followed by mystery, and mystery is always my favourite type of book, so whether that is in sort of a crime or a thriller or in any other type of other genre, really, if there's a mysterious element, I tend to like it. But my third most read genre so far is horror, which is quite interesting. I have been reading more horror over the last few years. It's something I've been really getting into, particularly like contemporary horror, some translated horror, that sort of thing. So it's interesting to see that climbing up the genre rankings there. And then tying for 4th position, we've got LGBTQIA and historical. I will be doing a video of my top 10 books of the year so far. I haven't planned it yet, but we'll get to that in a moment. If we look at my star ratings, my average rating this year so far is 3.29. It's probably a little lower than I would like it. So a 3-star for me means it's a good book. It means I enjoyed it. It's a definite thumbs up. And a 4-star means I loved it. So ideally I'd probably like that to be sort of in the higher 3-star range. As you can see on that graph, most of the books I've read have been 3 stars. I've only had one new to me 5-star book this year so far, which I read way back in January. I have had 2 other 5 stars, but they've both been rereads, so rereads are, I guess, more likely to be 5 stars. And then I have had 5 4.5 stars and 12 4 stars. So I do need to do some working out of what is going to be in my top 10 of the year so far. So those are the Storygraph stats. If we look at my goals for the year so far. So, first goal is I made a list of classics that I wanted to read in 2025. This is not going well. Let me just find the list. So at the start of the year, made a list of 6 or 7, 7 classics that I'd quite like to get to in 2025. So far, I have picked up 1 of those, which I have DNF'd, and that was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Of the other 6, I mean, Alice in Wonderland is on the sort of imminent TBR trolley here. Oops. And certainly, see, I do feel like classics I'm more likely to pick up in autumn, winter. So, yeah, so the other ones on the list anyway are Uncle Silas by Sheridan Le Fanu, which I really would like to get to in October. The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, same. And then I've got The Mayor of Casterbridge by Thomas Hardy, Villette by Charlotte Bronte, and Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. So I am failing on that goal. I'm not too worried about it because I do need to be in the mood to read classics, and yeah, so I'm not too worried about that one. My next goal was to read more books in translation. So in 2024, I read a total of 15 books in translation, and I wanted to read more than that this year. This one is going well because as of today, I have read 15 or 16, depending if we're counting one, works in translation, which is pretty good. And an additional 8 I have picked up but DNF'd. In terms of where those books have come from, a lot of them are from Japan. There's a few that have been translated from Spanish, some were South American. I also read one translated from Portuguese, which was from Brazil, and then I've read one from Norwegian and one from Danish. The one that I'm not sure does it count or not is an Italian play that I read in Italian, but it did have what's the word? It was like a dual reader copy, so it had the English and the Italian. I'm going to say that counts, so I'm going to say I've read 16 works in translation this year so far, which is great. I'm sure I will read more. Certainly, out of the library books I've got out, 2 of those are in translation. And there's a number of translated stuff on these TBR shelves, which we'll get back to in a bit, that hopefully I will get to by the end of the year. But I think overall, I mean, maybe for next year, I need to maybe look at sort of diversifying the translated stuff that I am reading, because it is sort of focused very much on certain parts of the world at the moment. The next goal was to complete the Read Good prompts from Ben Reads Good. So if you don't know, Ben has this year-long challenge, and each month is a different, I don't know, sort of theme or category. I am up to date with all of them. I haven't necessarily read them all in the correct month, but I am up to date with all of them, and I think I have either identified specific books I'm going to read for the remaining prompts for this year, or some of them are like the one for July, I think, is to read a book in translation. So I mean, there's loads on the shelf I can choose from. So I think I'm going well with that one. And then the final and sort of main goal for me for this year was to try and read from my shelves. I feel like I've said this for the last couple of years. So the way I framed this goal at the start of the year, ideally what I would like to do is to convert one of these TBR shelves to a read shelf, to books that I've read and want to keep. So of this bookshelf, the very bottom shelf, which you probably can't see, is stuff that I have read. Then so the stuff that's like piled on top, that stuff I've read as well. But these are TBR and these are TBR. Some of these are, that's like a classic collection. And then most of this is TBR, although some of these classics here is a little bit of a mixture. So ideally I wanted to convert one of these shelves from TBR to Red, which equates to around 25 books. So that is sort of reducing my physical TBR by about 25 books. And I can tell you I have failed dismally on this one. I feel like I probably would have done better had I not even made it a goal, because I feel like I'm doing worse than ever on this. In my defence, I have also joined another library, so I'm now a member of 4 libraries. So I've had like quite a lot of library reading. Well, it's just really exciting when you join a new library, isn't it? And like you look at all the books for the first time and come home with 10 books. So let's get into the specifics. So as I say, I've read 73 books in total. I've DNF'd 33. So I've picked up a total of 106 books this year so far. And of those 106, 4 were rereads. So we're going to discount the rereads from these figures. In terms of the books that I have owned, that I've picked up and either read or DNF'd, that's 29 books. In terms of the library books that I've picked up, that's 73 books. So 70% of my reading this year so far has come from the library. 27% has come from my shelves. So I'm not doing well reading from my shelves. I have looked at my DNF rate because I think this is quite interesting and quite telling as well. My DNF rate for library books versus owned books. So in terms of the books that are on my physical shelves that I've picked up, I've DNF'd 37% of those. And for the library books that I have started to read, I've DNF'd 30% of those. So I am DNFing more of my owned books than I am library books, which I think is probably the opposite of what you might expect. But the reason for that, I think, is because there's still quite a lot of books on these shelves which I haven't necessarily chosen myself. I've got them over the years from book boxes or advent calendars, those sorts of things. So yeah, so because I've not like chosen to bring them into my life myself, if you like, that I'm probably more likely to DNF them. And we'll come back to that in a bit. So linked in with this goal, something I have been doing for the first time this year is keeping a track of the books that I am buying and acquiring and that are joining my physical shelves. I thought it'd be interesting to actually track this year, not because I think I buy a lot of books and not because I think I spend a lot on books, because I don't think I do really, but it's just information that I didn't know before, so it's quite interesting to keep track of it. So far this year, 23 books have been acquired physically into my life, so obviously not including library books. And of those 23 books, 8 of them I got for free, so either from work as a present or using vouchers that I had received as a gift. 7 I bought second hand and 8 I bought new. So in total, those 23 books that I've acquired this year cost me just under £70 in total. So the average cost per books is just over £3 each, which is pretty good, I would say. And so if we look at how my overall TBR figure is doing, I've acquired 23 books for the TBR. I have read or DNF'd 29 books from the TBR, but 2 of them were soft DNF, so they're still actually on the TBR. So that makes it 27 books removed, which means a balance of a reduction on my TBR shelf since the start of the year of 4 books. It's gone down from, I think it was 115, so it's now around 111 on the physical TBR. So that is pretty poor overall. And then before we get into my plans for the rest of the year, one final stat that I think is quite interesting. My local library has started on your online account telling you how much you are saving by borrowing your books from the library. So according to them, so obviously I am a member of 4 libraries. This is just my local library that I have this figure for, but they are the library I use the most. So according to them, this year so far I've saved £1,039 £346 by using the library, that my local library, which is a lot. However, I think they include in that figure books that I have on hold, and I always have somewhere between 16 to 18 books on hold at any one time. And I say that because they tell me that currently the books I have out are worth like 260 odd pounds. I only have 4 books out the library at the moment. That does not add up to £260, but I do have an additional 18 on hold. So yeah, that probably works for that. But yeah, interesting to see those figures. Talking about library holds as well, I have been using the freeze hold function a lot over the last year or two, whereby rather than just reserving everything and then it all comes into the library and then I have to read it all and never have time for books from my shelves, I freeze the holds. And there's books on my library account now that I've had frozen for like several months, even up to a year, I think, in some cases. So even though I am controlling the flow of library books into my life, there are still lots of library books that I'm just like either seeing when I'm there, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I want to read that, I'm picking it up, or I'm just getting the FOMO and seeing new releases come out or hearing other people talk about books and being like, I need to read that right now. So that still happens. So yeah, interesting. In terms of my plans then for the year, well, for the remainder of the year, the translated stuff I'm not worried about, as I say, because I do have some translated stuff here. So as I am reading books from my shelves, those translated stuff, that will be read. So there will be more translated stuff being read. The read good prompts, I know what I'm reading, or I know I'll have lots of choice for what I want to read for those. In terms of the classics, I'm less bothered by them. I want to focus more on the reading from my shelves for the remainder of the year, but I'll maybe pick 2 or 3 to try and get to by the end of the year and probably read around sort of autumn, winter. My main plan is I really want to read from these shelves because there's a number of books that honestly have been staring at me for several years now and I need to either read them or get rid of them. I'm thinking about doing another try a chapter video, maybe. I did that last year, which was quite successful and unhauled about 30 odd books. And some of these books did survive that, but I'm wondering whether they need to go through that process one more time. And there are some that I think missed out on that. So yeah, one thing I might do that just occurred to me this morning is I might rearrange the shelves a little bit and separate the books that I have purposefully acquired from the ones which have just sort of randomly come into my life, and really try and look at those ones that are that I've sort of randomly acquired to see if I do actually want to read them or not, because I think that those are causing a big blockage in this whole reading system. So I think that is everything. That's my stats for the year so far. That's how I'm doing on my goals. That's how I sort of want to shape my reading for the rest of the year. So yeah, let me know how you're doing with your reading goals for this year so far. There will be a best books so far video coming hopefully in the next couple of weeks once I've decided what makes the cut for that list. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate everyone who takes the time to watch my videos. I do hope that you are doing well, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Bye.